My name is Mark Evans. I'm a scientist on an unusual mission. I want to hunt down the DNA of the most famous people who ever lived. The aim is to find out who they really were. I'm looking for his body parts.
His body parts?
I'm after the last remains of the greatest artists, scientists, even presidents.
That's Abraham Lincoln's hair, taken the night of the assassination.
That is a bit of Elvis. I'll then extract the DNA and attempt to read their genetic code containing their physical, medical, and behavioural traits. As far as I know, this is all that remains of Brando that we can sequence his DNA from. Could the DNA reveal what made Marilyn Monroe so attractive, Albert Einstein so intelligent, or Adolf Hitler so evil? My mission is no doubt controversial, but I intend to cross this moral minefield and use science to rewrite history. I need to trust you that it is absolutely Adolf Hitler's. On my journey, I'll meet the people already thinking of bringing the dead back to life. You're sort of envisaging a kind of conveyor belt of John Lennon's.
Well, if it works once, it's going to work again, right?
This is the incredible world of dead, famous DNA. It is absolutely mind-blowing. My mission begins in America, a country with a thriving market for relics of the dead famous. I need body parts with enough DNA to build the genome, the entire genetic code for life. My intention is to create a Noah's Ark of dead famous DNA for generations to come. But I can't have my ideal shopping list of historical figures. Body parts for some just don't exist or are way out of my price range. Wow, that's cool. Albert Einstein's eyeballs. Jesus, tried to sell them 15 years ago for $5 million. Michael Jackson was interested in buying them. I would never have believed in a million years that this stuff would have been so sought after. Oliver Cromwell's head, Joan of Arc's rib. Turns out the relics were pieces of an ancient Egyptian mummy, scraps of wood and a cat bone. What an extraordinary world this relic collecting is. The aim of my quest is honourable, to examine history from a biological perspective. But by acquiring body parts and analysing DNA, I'm no doubt walking a legal tightrope. Rules are constantly changing, and I fear not only breaking new laws, but also ones that haven't yet been written.
The one place you have to avoid is where we are right now, New York. Be scared.
Be scared of New York. I don't want to be a person who gets a phone call saying, can you get on a plane to the States because you're going to get tried over there?
But right now, there isn't anyone who can stop you from doing what you propose to do as long as you follow the rules that are set out today. And say, you know, other than New York, you can always pretty much find a way to do it.
Analysing dead famous DNA is legal in 45 states of the US. Next, I need a scientific team. Sequencing a complete human genome from ancient remains has never been achieved, but one of the world's top geneticists, Professor Stefan Schuster, is prepared to give it a go. DNA can be found in most human remains, but hair is the best source.
The hair shaft is like a shrine for DNA. Even maybe 40 strands of short hair might be enough. In the end, we end up analyzing single molecules, so we don't need a whole lot.
Still might be very tricky to find, though. Even 40 strands of hair.
Yeah, but this will be left up to you.
Yeah, thank you. So, dead famous hair is best, and as luck would have it, just 300 miles from the professor's lab, I discovered a hair dealership owned by John Rezhnikoff. Oh, yeah. Hi, how are you? Good to meet you. Have you got the biggest collection of hair
In the world.
in the world?
Yep, by far.
How many samples is that?
It's about we're up to about 150 samples right now.
Really? All authenticated?
All authentic. This is Charles I.
I'm very cynical. I keep looking at these pictures of hair with photos and think, how easy would that just be to go snip and just, you know what I mean?
Every lock of hair, just by its nature, requires somewhat of a leap of faith. But I will only buy things that are a crack in the sidewalk and not the Grand Canyon.
Uniforms.
Yep. There you go.
Good
on you.
Do you think so?
You're welcome to wear it while you're here. Wellington.
Wellington.
Queen Victoria.
What, the Queen Victoria?
The Queen
Our Queen Victoria.
Yes, that's her.
She wasn't a ginger. That is crazy. And is it always head hair, or do you get pubic hair and that kind of stuff as well?
No, don't mess with that at all. Nothing below the waist.
Is that your rule?
That's my rule.
Why is that? Why is that?
It's just too creepy. I don't want to go there with that, you know.
But do you think people would think it's quite creepy anyway, that you've kind of got hair?
I mean, they might think that, but then I could disarm them right away by saying, does your mom have a lock of your hair from when you were a baby? And almost everybody says yes, they do.
Charles I, Queen Victoria, and the Duke of Wellington are all very tempting, but I don't think there's enough hair to complete their genomes. So this is the really important stuff in here then, if it's behind this door.
That's Abraham Lincoln's hair, taken the night of the assassination.
So what are we talking value-wise for that?
$750,000, 750,000.
Are you serious?
I'm very serious.
Is there a kind of hierarchy of people from history in terms of the value of that?
It's really supply and demand.
John does have a large supply of one hair sample at an affordable price. The hair of Mad King George III. Oh, wow. That's a serious amount of hair.
Yep.
And where did that come from?
I'm going to show you the provenance, but basically it was found in a junkyard.
In a junkyard?
Yes.
So how are you going to how could anybody prove it was George III?
I'm going to show you.
The hair was discovered in this hat box on a dump back in 1983, along with the will of an American millionairess.
The piece of George III's hair to go with the portraits. So it actually mentions, and this is kind of like a will, a last testament of Mrs. Charles Pinkerton to pass on this.
My first human relic, a lock of one of Britain's most famous royals for $5,000. I just can't resist. What an incredible story. A huge clump of Mad King George's hair ends up on a rubbish dump in a hat box in the middle of America. I mean, you couldn't write this stuff, could you? But is it true? I need to investigate the provenance of the hair, but first I deliver my precious cargo to Professor Schuster. George III.
Oh, nice. This is an enormous amount of hair. It's in beautiful condition.
If the professor can extract the DNA, I hope to solve the 200-year-old mystery of what turned Mad King George mad. But the results will take a few months. My mission is not only to sequence the genomes of the dead famous, but also the infamous. And no one is more infamous than Adolf Hitler. Could his DNA tell me if his evil was born or made? Did he have genes for a psychiatric disorder? Was the devil in the DNA? But I had my work cut out to find a piece of the Führer. He did a pretty good job ensuring his corpse was never found. Back in April 1945, the Russians surrounded the Führer bunker. 30 feet below the Reich Chancellery in the centre of Berlin. Having heard that Mussolini's body had been kicked, spat on and hanged upside down, Hitler was determined to avoid a similar fate. On the afternoon of April the 30th, Hitler and his wife, Eva Braun, committed suicide. Their bodies were immediately taken upstairs, doused in petrol, set alight, and buried in the garden. 2 days later, the charred corpses were supposedly discovered in a shell crater by Russian intelligence, and body parts taken back to Moscow. So it's possible that Hitler's remains were later traded in the underworld of Nazi relic dealing.
So, Hitler, hair for sale. Not eBay. What on earth is that? Not eBay. Holocaust denied. David Irving. You're a questionable character, Mr. Irving, aren't you? Controversial historian David Irving has set up a website selling Nazi memorabilia, which he claims includes strands of Hitler's hair. The site also offers a walking stick used by the German dictator, price tag $7,000. Let's see if I can find out a bit more about you.
David Irving, the controversial historian, Holocaust denier, and anti-Semite.
You people, you have been disliked for 3,000 years. It never occurs to you to look in the mirror and say, why am I disliked? What is it that the rest of humanity doesn't like about the Jewish people to such an extent that they repeatedly put us through the grinder?
Irving has been internationally condemned for his close association with neo-Nazis and for his sympathy towards the Third Reich. Irving once said, he works to remove the slime applied to the reputation of Adolf Hitler. I find his views appalling, but this is the only source of Hitler I can find.
If I want to sequence Hitler's DNA, this could be my only opportunity to do so. Should I deal with David Irving? Can I trust him?
On my mission to sequence the genomes of the dead famous, I've discovered that controversial historian David Irving is selling what he claims is Adolf Hitler's hair. I'm not sure I can trust him, but I've decided to meet. It seems my only opportunity to analyse the DNA of the most evil dictator in history. Irving is on a tour of America, giving talks to far-right audiences fascinated with his version of Nazi history. Concerned for his safety, he wants to meet at a secret location.
Morning, David. Mark.
Nice to meet you.
And to see you. And to see you. Okay, so have you got the hair with you?
I have indeed. I've got it in here.
The story behind Hitler's hair is fascinating. Apparently, Hitler's barber, Gustav Schumann, wanted a memento of the Führer's hair, but didn't dare ask. Instead, he applied double-sided sticky tape to the soles of his shoes and collected the hair as it fell from Hitler's head.
The original sticky tape has been ever since 1947.
So was this on its own? I mean, this was just an item on its own. There was no other paperwork with it?
It came with this.
So what's this?
A handwritten statement by Gustav Schumann, dated 7th of July 1947, in which he says that I live in Salzburg. I'm translating this.
Yeah.
And during the war, I was a barber, a friseur, and I obtained this hair on 11th of July 1944.
Now, you've got the original of this letter?
I don't have the original of this letter.
Is that available again for us to be able to look at?
Yes, I can probably get it from you.
Why did you buy it, I suppose, is the obvious question.
I don't buy things. I deal in them, and I just like any other dealer, I charge a commission on a successful sale.
My journey here is not to explore you.
How trustworthy am I?
Exactly that. I need to know that what you are telling me about the sample of hair that I now have and I'm going to try and sample the DNA from. Yeah. I need to trust you that it is absolutely Adolf Hitler's, and that, and how I'm concerned about how can I believe you given your track record.
You're right. I mean, one thing I'd say straight away here is I don't have a dog in this particular fight, one way or the other. It makes no difference to me.
The issue is a scientific one of wanting to explore. Here is somebody who has a massive historical record that has been analysed a lot, which gives us a kind of benchmark against which to look at the DNA.
I have to tell you, there is another man in Pennsylvania who contacted me about 4 years ago. I've given you actually here the actual correspondence I had with him, so you feel free to contact him.
Who is this person?
I'm not going to mention his name on camera, but you'll find his name and details on the papers I've given you.
And what is he?
He is another collector, and he has somehow collected, in a very adventurous manner, bits of Adolf Hitler's body and bits of Eva Braun's body, bits of the rib cage, in Adolf Hitler's case, where you will almost certainly find DNA samples.
So when you said a bit of an adventurous way, is that a euphemism for illegal?
These things were obtained from the Soviet Union at the time of the Soviet Union collapse.
Forgive me if I'm a bit slightly confused, because on the one hand, I mean, obviously you're very keen to be considered a very authentic expert as a historian, but on the other hand, you've got this kind of sideline in dealing in relics. How do you marry those two things together?
I'm dealing in historical facts also, and there's historical documents. To my mind, a bit of Adolf Hitler's rib cage is a historical document, just like a piece of his hair is. In a legal sense, it's a document.
But on a personal level, as your fascination for history, how does it make you feel about going, oh, well, I've got something here that could be worth something that I'm prepared to flog on and make a commission on?
Equally, people approached me and said, I've got one of Joseph Mengeler's letters. Now, he was the notorious doctor at Auschwitz, and I said, I'm not going to touch it. And I've said to this gentleman in Pennsylvania, thank you, but no, I will put people in touch with you. But I'm not going to actually handle the items. I mean, quite apart from anything else, it's a personal security issue. If it became known, for example, to the Mossad, that I have bits of Adolf Hitler's body strongly containing strong samples of DNA, as bits of his ribcage certainly would, in my home, then I'm putting myself and my family at risk.
Well, bits of his hair contain DNA that are now in my possession. So
now you're at risk. To use an American, I would say, take care.
I paid Irving $5,000 and intend to follow up on the mystery Nazi relic collector who claims to have Adolf Hitler and Eva Braun's bone. But first, I want a closer inspection of the Hitler hair sample.
Look at that. What's great is there are lots of strands of hair here that do look as if they've come from a a haircut because they're really short snippings. And this says Hitler's hair was extremely difficult to obtain due to his paranoia and superstitious nature, demanding the hair be swept up and destroyed after being cut. Schumann only managed to obtain his hair by placing a piece of double-sided tape on the bottom of his shoe and walking through the hair. The risk is extraordinary, isn't it? I mean, if he'd been caught, the punishment would have been extreme, I'm sure. I mean, he could have lost his life. Was this stuck to the bottom of a barber's shoe? That's the question. I'll tell you what, though, of all the crazy goings-on that have gone on behind the closed bedroom doors of this hotel in Dallas, fiddling about with the Führer's hair has got to be amongst the weirdest.
I need to investigate the story behind the hair, but not until I've set the professor to work.
Hello, Stefan. How are you? I'm good. How are you?
Pretty good too.
Listen, I have got some interesting news. I've managed to track down some hair of Adolf Hitler, and I wanted to know from you what you thought the best way of getting it shipped to you would be.
I would not be interested in receiving that sample.
Why not?
Because I think you need to deserve to be sequenced.
If I decide not to do it, personally, if I now have got the hair, if I don't sequence the genome, I'm somehow censoring, saying, well, nasty people we can't sequence, we can only sequence good people. And where do you draw the line then?
The line is with, for example, musicians, with artists, with scientists, philosophers. Hitler and the likes didn't make the cut for being good people.
You know, it is a difficult decision, but I just sort of think that ultimately, if we could learn something from his genome that could in any way help prevent it ever happening again, then that's got to be a good thing for science to do, hasn't it?
I don't think we will learn anything by sequencing Adolf Hitler's genome on why he killed 52 million people.
I respect the professor's view, but disagree with him. Although the causes of the Holocaust won't be revealed in Hitler's DNA, there are biographical facts that could be. And what made Hitler who he was is an important question. For Hitler, I need to find another lab. In the meantime, I'm going to stash the hair.
That's a big door. I have done some strange things in my life, but nothing rates anywhere near putting a piece of Adolf Hitler's hair in a safety deposit box in the middle of America. Right.
With the Führer safely locked away, I can continue my search for other dead, famous DNA. So far on my journey, I've found body parts of a mad royal and an evil dictator, though it hasn't been easy getting my hands on dead famous DNA. But I've discovered one subculture where body parts are traded all the time, the macabre and murky world of celebrity relic dealing. And I'm after the king. I noticed online bits of Elvis Presley being traded and have travelled to his former home to track down the collectors.
I'm after Elvis stuff. I'm looking for his body parts.
His body parts.
Yeah.
You're in trouble unless you want to dig it out. It's over there at Graceland, but I don't think they're going to let you dig it out.
In his prime, Elvis had it all.
One threw a party in the county jail.
The looks and the moves.
The band was jumping and the joint began to swing.
The sexy and mesmerizing voice. Put it together, and you had one of the most charismatic pop stars who ever lived. But at 42 years old, he was a shadow of his former self. He looked ill and distant. He was grossly overweight and short of breath. On the 16th of August 1977, Elvis collapsed and died. So what could his DNA tell me? Would his genes shed light on his incredible talent? Or did he have the genes for addiction? He loved women, drugs, and fried peanut butter and banana sandwiches. I wanted to discover more about the man, so I headed to meet Larry Geller, Elvis's spiritual advisor and a member of his inner circle, known as the Memphis Mafia.
Physically, he had it all. Physically, it was like every molecule in an atomic way was all put together properly. The voice, the look, the soul, the man himself. But his health, that was the weak spot. In terms of his health, wasn't given beneficent genes in that sense. He said to me, a couple of months into 1977, the year he died, he said, "The spirit is willing, but the flesh is weak." That last year of his life was unbelievable. He had health problems, dire health problems, from glaucoma to a spastic, impacted colon. Every night after a show, his blood pressure would shoot to 180 every night. That's very, very dangerous.
How did you feel when you heard he'd died? The first time somebody told you, when you heard?
Words become inadequate. All we have is words to communicate. I mean, there's a word for everything. There's a word for nothing. I thought my life was over. I thought I was going to die that night.
Elvis was found dead on his bathroom floor. The cause was never made public, prompting many theories.
Memphis police say more than 10,000 people jammed the street outside Graceland Mansion during the nearly 3 hours Elvis Presley's body lay in state.
Whether you be black or white, redneck or freak, from Memphis or Moscow, to me, Elvis Presley will always be the king of rock and roll.
The apparent cause, according to his personal physician, Dr. George Nicopolis, is a heart attack. The singer's father, Vernon Presley, has requested that an autopsy be performed.
I think the basic conclusion was that we really don't know why he died.
I feel that somewhere along the way, someone has to take it upon himself to see that the truth is brought up.
But you definitely feel there's a cover-up?
I'm positive about that.
With Elvis's DNA, perhaps I can finally determine the cause of his premature demise. Was it purely his inability to cope with fame? Or did he have an underlying and undiagnosed genetic problem? Elvis died 37 years ago, so I had my work cut out to not only find a body part, but also one that had been preserved well enough to extract sufficient amounts of DNA. A good place to start is the home of Elvis's biggest fan, Joni Mabe.
This is Everything Elvis. Joni Mabe's panoramic encyclopedia of everything Elvis.
This is an obsession, Joni, isn't it?
Yeah, I'm the queen of the king.
Just goes on forever. Do you have any body parts of Elvis?
I do.
The Elvis wart.
The wart that was removed from his right wrist, and there's a picture of it right there. Before he went into the army in 1957, he had this wart, and he had it removed.
It looks like a blob of snot. Are you sure it's a wart?
Well, if you look close, you can see like some roots on it.
Roots?
Like a wart has roots, it's a virus.
That is a wart. That is quite a lot of tissue, isn't it?
Yeah. Oh, it's huge.
Out of all this, what is your prized possession?
The wart.
No question.
No
the
question.
Wart. Why the wart?
Because it's an actual piece of Elvis.
And that's important.
Yeah.
Rather
It's
than
the
picture.
only one on Earth.
But have you been offered, people offered to buy it?
$1 million wouldn't buy it.
What if I could answer some questions about Elvis?
The DNA? No.
Imagine how disappointed Elvis fans the world over are going to be with you. Imagine.
No is the answer.
Joni Mabe's wart is probably more virus than Elvis. And I still have one more possibility. I'd received a tip-off that a friend of Elvis's barber had a whole jar full of hair cuttings.
So this is it?
Elvis's hair.
This is Elvis's hair. Wow.
That's as close to the man as you can get. Well, this hair has been in my safe or in a bank vault ever since I've had it. It's not been out exposed to the elements or sunlight or anything else.
So how did you come to be the keeper of the big clump of hair then?
I knew Homer Gilliland, who was Elvis's barber. What he would do, he'd go out and cut Elvis's hair and he'd drape a towel around Elvis's shoulders and neck. He'd cut his hair, trim it, whatever, and the hair that fell on the floor, they swept it up and disposed of it. But the hair that was captured on the towel, Homer would roll it up, put it in his satchel, and when he left, he took it with him. And he told me, he said, I want you to have this hair. He said, this was Elvis's hair.
If Elvis was still alive, he'd have been 79. But all that's left of him is his hair.
Right. Lid on, assistant.
The hair is in good condition, and the provenance seems very convincing. So I'm buying a test tube full for $2,000. But from the day of Elvis's haircut, over 50 years ago, the DNA has been degrading, reducing my chances of sequencing his complete genome.
That is a bit of Elvis, which is pretty cool, isn't it?
This is phenomenal.
The analysis will take several months. I just hope there's enough DNA to reveal the king's genetic code and discover why he died so young. So far on my mission to sequence the DNA of the dead famous, I had samples claimed to be from Mad King George and Elvis Presley being analysed in the lab. Adolf Hitler's hair is locked away in a safety deposit box, and now I'm after the bones of Hitler and Eva Braun. Controversial historian David Irving provided me with the details of a relic collector who claims to have bone from the Führer and his wife. After much deliberation, he agreed to meet me with certain conditions. He won't allow me to reveal his identity on camera. He won't even let me say which bit of America I'm in right now. So he's a nervous guy. Mr. X refused to meet at his house and suggested a rundown motel on the outskirts of town.
These were vertebrae and a bone of Hitler and Eva Braun.
Okay, so that's Eva Braun's vertebrae.
The scorched bones supposedly came from Hitler and Braun's grave outside the Führer bunker in Berlin.
That was Hitler.
They were sold to Mr. X by a dealer who travelled to Russia to buy them from a former KGB officer.
This is actually nicked from KGB archives.
Well, supposedly it was given up by a KGB agent.
By a KGB agent who kind of just slipped this into his briefcase or his pocket when they were moving it.
Right.
Mr. X also has hair locks of Hitler and Braun, originating from the same Austrian barber as the hair from David Irving.
Well, this is a letter from the barber who cut the hair, and this particular barber took some double-sided tape and put it on the bottom of his shoe.
This name, Gustav Schumann, and this letter is very familiar to me. Do you know a guy called David Irving?
Yes, I do. I don't know him personally, but I've spoken to him.
You might be very interested in this. Take a look at that. Does that look familiar?
Well, there's no question, it's my letter. We gotta stop for a second. Now, I can tell you the whole story of this, but it ain't gonna make David Irving look very good. I sent him a copy of this because I didn't read German, and he's somewhere, I'm sure he has German contacts. Obviously, he's made a copy of my letter, and he's put it with some other item here.
What's bizarre, though, isn't it, is that actually this sample's the one that's got sellotape, which fits with the story from your letter here about the provenance of that's how Gustav Schumann collected it, allegedly.
If that were the case, where's his original letter to go with this?
It's intriguing, this, isn't it?
Listen, history is intriguing.
My first experience of the world of Nazi relic dealing was getting murkier by the minute. How could hair from two different sources share the same letter of provenance? And then there's Hitler and Braun's bones, allegedly stolen from the KGB. Clues to the origins of all these samples will lie in the DNA, but I still haven't found a lab willing to analyse Hitler's body parts. DNA is a molecular spiral staircase found in all living cells. It's made up of 4 building blocks, simplified as letters A, C, G, T. Sequences of these letters provide the instructions for every function in the human body. There's 6 billion letters in the human genome. If it were published, this book of life would stand 300 feet tall and take a century to read. Incredibly, this is the amount of information stored in every human cell.
It's a year into my quest to sequence the genomes of the dead famous, and it's time for my first set of results.
So could the professor extract the Book of Life from the remains of Mad King George? There was plenty of hair and in good condition, but the professor delivered a body blow.
Say that again. George III's hair?
is a wig. That, as they say, is $5,000 down the Genomic toilet. My hope rested on Elvis's hair. I didn't have scientific proof it was his, but the story of his barber collecting the hair was very convincing. So could the professor extract the King's Book of Life? So this is a view of Elvis Presley that no one has ever seen before.
This genome of a dead person that has died a long time ago is the best genome we have ever done. In fact, we could actually decipher 90% of his genome.
I mean, that's mind-blowing, isn't it?
This is the blueprint of genetic information of what makes a person.
If you think of Elvis Presley as some kind of extraordinary biological machine, then what you're looking at here is the code that built him and the code that controlled his life. It is absolutely mind-blowing. Ladies and gentlemen, Elvis Presley has left the building. So, if this was Elvis on hard drive, what could his genome tell me? I immediately send the genetic code to a team of medical geneticists in Kansas who search for mutations, known as variants, that cause disease. Would they solve the mystery surrounding the King's premature death? Inside the nucleus of each cell are 23 pairs of chromosomes that contain the entire genome's DNA. On chromosome 1, the geneticist found a variant for migraine. Elvis constantly suffered from crippling headaches. On 17, they found a variant for glaucoma. At the end of his life, Elvis's sight was so bad, he needed to be guided off stage. On chromosome 19, they spotted a variant for obesity. Surely, this was the King's genome. So did it reveal the evidence for his premature death? Did you find anything that kind of gets me any closer to trying to work out what killed this guy at 42?
Actually, we did, yes. We found a variant on chromosome 11. Here we are. This is a variant that is known to cause cardiomyopathy. That's a thickening of the heart, a weakening of the heart muscle.
On chromosome 11, Professor Kingsmore discovered an unusual letter change in the code associated with hypertrophic cardiomyopathy, a rare heart muscle disease that mostly occurs in men between 20 and 40 years old. Do you think this is significant enough that it could tip it towards...
Well, this is definitely a smoking gun. I mean, it looks pretty suspicious that this may indeed have contributed potentially to Elvis's death. You know, we could have advised him to modify his diet, to see a cardiologist, to have his blood pressure checked, and, you know, he may have had a different life.
He might even still have been around now.
He may well have been.
Towards the end, Elvis showed all the symptoms of heart muscle disease: an irregular heartbeat, high blood pressure, fatigue, and episodes of fainting. He sensed a problem, but ignored the ticking time bomb within. For years, Elvis has been blamed for his own death, overeating or overdosing on drugs. Both of these addictions wouldn't have helped. But it seems Elvis had a flaw in his DNA. His early death was his genetic destiny. The concept of rewriting history through science has been proven. The moral minefield has been crossed. So what other mysteries could be solved on my quest for dead, famous DNA? The story behind Hitler's bone becomes increasingly plausible.
So is it human?
Yes, this bone is definitely human.
I aim to solve a 100-year-old mystery surrounding Charles Darwin.
What do you think he was suffering from?
I don't know. You're the scientist. You tell me.
And Elvis's DNA gets personal.
It's an incredible story. I want to know if he's my dad or not.